Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I'm Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today I'm going to try and Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today we're doing a screen of Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. This is a very special video. This is my 5,000 subscriber special video. So first of all, before we go any further, I want to say a massive thank you to all of my subscribers. Whether you subscribed just before you saw this video, whether you subscribed like 5 years ago when I first started and I had 2 subscribers, one of them being me, or whether you haven't subscribed yet but you're thinking of pushing that little red button down there, feel free to do so. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anyway, thank you everyone, because the 5,000, the big 5,000 landmark is a big landmark. It's a huge waypoint for any YouTube channel. It's the point where the channel can start. Well, they say that 10,000 comes very quickly after 5,000. So, you know, here's hoping, because I'd love to see the channel like just really explode like that. That'd make my day. But at any rate, so big special video. Big thanks to everyone. I got something special lined up for today, or at least I think it's special anyway. So I was racking my heads. I was thinking, what am I going to do for the 5,000 subscriber special? What is something that is cool and a bit unique that I could do that kind of reflects the channel as a whole? And I got to thinking, part of the interesting part of my channel is growth. And I don't mean in terms of the channel's growth, I mean my growth. And when you look at some of my early videos, you know, I know an awful lot more today than I did when I started this channel. And this is the thing, no one is a master. Everyone is a student, everyone is always learning. I am no exception. And one of the best examples of that is my soldering. You know, there's some of my early videos there where I was replacing laptop DC jacks, and I was having to Dremel the old one out and solder the new one in, and they were all slightly wonky, and I'm like, that's the best I can manage and stuff like that. Ooh, horrible. Where you look at me do it these days with the hot air gun and it looks like it's a factory finish, you know. I'm a lot better at fixing stuff than I used to be. And so I just so happened to be looking through my photo library on my laptop, and I was looking at the old stuff because it just happened to open at the oldest picture first. And I started looking through photos going, oh, I remember that. And I found this picture here. Now this is an Apple eMac. This picture was taken at a proprietary school that I used to work at. It was one of my earliest jobs. I used to work there back in 2006, 2007. I think it was about 2006-ish. Well, I say private school. It was not a private school. It was a prep school. So, you know, you've got to pay to go there. Very, very fancy. Lots of fancy people used to go there. And it was all Macintosh on the educational side, and it was Windows computers on the admin side. And I was the technician there. So the system administrator, who was also one of the IT teachers, did all the teaching, and I ran around the school part-time fixing any problems that arose with the computers. It was a cool job. I didn't stay at that job for long enough. I enjoyed that job, but it was part-time. They didn't pay me enough, blah, blah, blah. Stuff happened. Anyway, the point is, though, they had a lot of these eMacs. Now, if you haven't seen an eMac before, it was the educational Mac, and it was one of Apple's all-in-ones, similar to the old iMacs. As you can see, it's a CRT construction with built-in computer on the bottom. There's a DVD drive at the bottom there, built-in speakers, and so on. These things weigh a ton, like a lot. However heavy you think this thing is, it's heavier, trust me. You couldn't run while you're carrying one of these. Absolutely mental. But at any rate, while I was there, a bunch of the eMacs developed a problem where the picture on the display would go out of sync and the picture would go about a third off of the front of the display. and it would flicker and all the rest of it. And you know, we thought, oh damn, you know, they're buggered. And when the first one went down, we were like, okay, that's a shame. We're down a computer. But then it happened to like 5 or 6 of them, and obviously, you know, my boss was just like, oh, you know, we're down 5 or 6 computers. These things ain't cheap. And so I did some research, and I tried to see if I could fix it, and I did fix it. After doing some research, I discovered that the fault was caused by the LVDS cable, I think it was called, which is basically the display cable that links the logic board to the CRT section internally. And that cable would develop a fault, it would break down, something would happen to it, and it would cause the display to go out of sync, and you would get the garbled display. And while I was there, and I fixed this on several of them, I took pictures of me taking it to bits. So as you can see, this is steady shot by shot, me taking bits and pieces of it off, taking the speakers out, taking covers off. There's the logic board, and then finally we exposed the cable in question, and we replaced it, and it fixed them. So that was one of my earliest examples of me fixing an Apple computer. And I don't mean just like changing a hard drive or reinstalling macOS, you know, actually doing a quote-unquote a technical repair on it. So I saw those pictures, I was like, oh, I miss those days, you know. And then I looked in my back room, and it just so happens that I have an eMac in my back room that I've got sitting back there. I don't want to throw it out because I think I like the eMac, but it's useless because it's an old G4 eMac. They're not good for anything anymore, which is a shame, but it's a fact. And I thought, let's recreate the first repair that I ever did on an Apple Mac. So let's go get it. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, how is it so heavy? Oh. 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 I'm too old for this. Okay, so this is a 2004-ish eMac. Let's see if we can get a rough date on this one. Oh, I'm going to turn it over and find the serial number. This one's got a. This one's on a stand. How does that? We'll remove this stand. This is might be a. I think this is an official stand. Quite handy, really. But we'll take this off because this is going to be in my way. I'm going to remove that first of all, actually. DVD drive. Almost I'm ashamed that I forgot that. There we go. eMac 700, 120, 40G. Oh, 128, 40G combo. So what we've got is a G4 700 megahertz with 128 megabytes of RAM, a 40 gigabyte hard drive, combo drive. So that's DVD, CD writer, DVD reader, and 56K dial-up modem, thank you very much, and GeForce 2 MX graphics. Cool, who remembers that? Memories. So there we go. So this is an early one. So this is probably the 2002 era one as well. Very cool. Right, let's start taking this thing apart. Oh boy, that screw is shredded. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Oh, that's a poor start. Oh man, I think we're going on an adventure with this. Can I get anything in there? That is toast. I think the last person who tried to remove that probably failed. That is going to have to come off though. That's got to come off. Alright, well I guess we're getting the Dremel. Alright, and all the purists, get ready to cringe. These cheap eBay cutting wheels are just horrendous. I got to get some proper ones. I got to fork out some proper money for some decent cutting wheels. Did the job though. There we go. That'll do it. So if we look in the back of it where we've taken off that access panel now, we've now got access to the RAM slots here. So you can see we've got 2 slots. Let's just pop that guy out, see what it's got in it at the moment. Because a lot of these things were obviously upgraded during their lifetime. Look at that, DDR RAM, 2 notches, not DDR, sorry, that's SD RAM. It's got 2 notches in it. None of this DDR rubbish. And yeah, look at that, 128 megabytes, 133 megahertz, made by Micron, so crucial basically. Not bad, Obama. Well, it is pretty bad, but you could drop in a probably a 256 upgrade. That would be quite a common upgrade for this. So put in a 256 module, take it up to 300 and whatever it would be. Then we've also got access to this ribbon cable here. That's the IDE cable going to the DVD drive, and that is just the DVD drive. Yeah, the hard drive is on a separate ribbon somewhere else in there. And then there we've also got access to the PRAM battery, I think that is, which is basically the BIOS battery in this thing to all intents and purpose. This thing doesn't, well, it does have a BIOS, but not the same kind of BIOS as you expect to see in a traditional PC. But yeah, those batteries really common in the old Macs. Lasted quite a while, but yeah, that's there as well. Otherwise, we don't really have access to much more than here. We've got to start taking more screws out. Okay, right, if my memory serves me, we've got to take off these 2 feet at the bottom here. Big through-hole screws here that go all the way through the chassis to support the weight of the computer from the front. Oh no, I lie, they're quite short actually, but they still go through to the main chassis. Obviously, what we're trying to do firstly is take off this white shell, the white cover. That's going to come off. So that's come out. Now we've got to take off these panel screws, which are hex, but again, I'm using a T10 here. So probably a 10 mil hex, or, well, not 10 mil, I don't know, that hex. It's answering to a Torx 10 at any rate. I would have just had a little set of Allen keys back in the day, but most of the time now, as soon as I see Allen screws, I just get out my Torx screwdrivers. I'll usually do. Alright, so now we kind of have to lift the shell, if my memory serves me. This thing just lifts off, I think. So I think you just sort of give it a hug and just... Ah, there we go, just like that. I swear I have not looked any of this up. I'm doing this all from memory. And now, let's just see if we can recreate that shot of the power button. Because this is the gotcha moment. This is where everyone breaks their eMac while disassembling it. There it is, there's the power button. And we just got to unhook that guy. I'm in the complete wrong position to be doing this. I think I can get 2 fingers up there. Just, oh, ow. No, it's no good. I'm doing this cat-handed. I'm going to turn it around, but you've seen what I'm getting at. There we go. Now we can lift that away. Now, if you mess that up, you're going to do one of 2 things. Either you're going to rip off that connector there, or you're going to rip off that connector there. And then you'll need to get yourself a new power button. But anyway, that's our shell. Do you feel in control? Alright, so now we've got a lot of stuff exposed here. So firstly, obviously, we've got to take a little bit of care because the top end of, or the back end rather, of the CRT is all exposed here. So this is obviously all the very high voltage side. Now, I'm not an expert with CRTs. I know the gist of them. I can't remember which bits of this are super dangerous. Obviously, our biggest concern is any capacitors that are hooked up to flyback transformers that will generate the 4 HV, I don't know, probably 10,000 odd volts. There's going to be a lot of volts to power this thing, and that will come through to this bad boy here. That's rubber. I can touch that. That's fine. So this is the big high voltage line coming to the top of the CRT, and that creates the high voltage anode that the cathode ray tube here is firing electrons out to. And those electrons will fly out to the front of the screen, strike the front of the screen, and then they'll be gathered off on this cable. So that's what that is all about. So the next thing we've got to do is we've got to remove this cooling fan at the back. So this is an exhaust fan. It's blowing out the back of the computer. So it's literally a rear exhaust. So this was the only cooling in the computer. The whole thing was cooled by this fan drawing currents through the whole thing. And then that air intake just came from just all through here, just all the vents around the computer, and would just all come through and blow out the back. They were pretty quiet, these things. They were very effective. This was a big temperature-controlled PWM fan, I think. Is it PWM? No, it's 3-pin, but it has a built-in thermistor on it. Apple were very good at keeping their computers quiet, even in the early days. So let's take that guy off. We'll disconnect it. Oh, I think that was unnecessary. I took the fan off, but I think what I wanted to do was take off this whole metal frame. I think that's what I really needed to. Yeah, that sounds about right. Right, so what have we got hooking that up? Because that has also got the IEC connector on it there. And that IEC connector is all a bit wobbly because it just means that it can center and locate on the outer shell to make sure that the cable always looks perfect in there. Quite a bit of a... That's a lot of movement on there. Anyway, let's take this fella off. So let's undo that. And now we've got to undo this lot. So we've got that guy in there, and we've got an earth strap going down to there. There we go. So that's our cooling fan and IEC connector off. So this guy is our power supply, it looks like. And I don't think it's the entirety of the power supply. There is a transformer in there that then has another high voltage line here that goes up onto one of the main power boards for the CRT. Then it's also got this cable coming out here that goes down into the rest of the computer, possibly to a smaller power supply on the logic board itself. I think there is more power supply stuff going on deeper in the computer. So it obviously did it in a couple of stages. This guy was probably taking the main input down to a lower voltage, which was then subsequently worked on somewhere else in the computer. So the next thing we're going to do is remove this tin shield, because that lets us get to the rest of, well, oh no, we can't get to that yet. This plate and the speakers have got to come off next. Then we can expose the rest of the logic board and have a look at that. All right, now are these speakers ready to come out? I think they are. There we go. There's the speaker assembly, which unplugs from there. Snap that guy open. So there are our dual speakers, and Apple were really early adopters of these sort of dome type speakers. I don't know what you call this type of speaker, but yeah, they were pretty decent. You got good speakers in these things. They were very good for desktop computers. The eMac was designed for educational use, but it was a fantastic home computer as well. One of the early affordable Macs. I think, if my memory serves me, they were about £600 or £700, which made them quite affordable to the common man. It was definitely a good option if you couldn't afford yourself a big shiny iMac. At the time when these came out, the iMac G4 was a thing, which was the the old desk lamp style one. But honestly, I prefer this. Well, no, I've got a soft spot for the desk lamp iMac as well. I like both of them equally. I think the eMac was a far more practical computer. It was more sensible, it was more affordable, and it was almost as fast. But the desk lamp iMac had that wonderful pivoting LCD display, which was super cool. All right, so this cable's going down to this big box here. That looks like another big transformer. God, this is very unfamiliar, this design. I don't remember any of this. They must have changed quite a lot between this early version and the one that I was accustomed to taking apart. Right, have we got enough of those off yet? I think we have. Off comes our shielding. The reason why these Macs have so much of this shielding on them is, of course, because they have plastic covers. There's no EMI shielding. There's nothing to stop the any radiation or something like that leaking out of this thing, switching noise, that kind of thing, which means it will fail your FCC validation. So they cover them all with all the shielding and the tin plating, so anything that's coming off of these circuit boards can't escape the computer. Whereas obviously in a normal PC, the whole thing is in a tin box, so ain't nothing getting out of there. And there we go, there's our main power supply. Look at all them caps. At least part of it anyway. There's certainly a lot of power stuff going on there. And then that is, that guy has a board-to-board interconnect there that goes onto the main logic board. So I think now, am I going to have to remove that guy? I think I am. Well, I didn't want to strip this thing down to its guts, but I do want to take that, I do want to take the combo drive out. I did want to get that far into it. Right, let's take that guy off. Long boy. How long? Stop. There we go. Whew. It's a mini adventure. Ooh, there we go. So we've got a load of power management stuff on that. You can see we've got a load of regulators up there. Another big regulator down there as well, and all these filter caps. So this is this guy's probably making a load of the power rails for smaller power rails for the computer. So it probably has a main input coming in, and then it breaks that down into smaller voltages for the rest of the computer. Oh, good gravy! I remember this. This, like, the whole thing comes off, I think. Oh, and I've just found our actual LVAD cable, iVAD cable. In fact, the first thing I'm going to do is look at what it's actually called on the board, which it doesn't say. However, we've actually, there we go. It was exactly where I thought it was. I just couldn't see it yet. I was looking in the wrong place. Whoop. There he is. That's our guy going from the logic board up into the input there. I confused it for this one here. That's what I thought we were looking at, and that guy goes up into this guy here. So we were actually wanting that one there. Good, back on target. So can we remove that guy? Not quite. Is that little shield there? Does that come off? Forgive me, I keep putting the camera exactly where I want to put my hand. There we go. There he is. There it is. There's our dude. Bam. Cool. I'll keep that to one side. We will actually turn this thing off once I've finished tearing it down. Turn this thing off, turn this thing on. See if it works. See if we can even replicate the fault with it, maybe, by fiddling around with that wire. That'd be kind of cool. So I'm now looking for any screws that are holding the entire quote-unquote computer assembly onto the main chassis. We're going to take all of them off. And what happens next will shock you. I don't mean like electrically shock you, I mean just you'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh wow, okay then. Because I seem to remember that's what I was like. Ah. This thing is super awkward to take apart when you're trying to film it. Like really awkward. Because I want to turn it around and face it properly, but I also don't want to block the cameras. So please excuse me constantly sticking my head in front of the cameras. Don't know what this guy's going to do. I think we're nearly ready. I think we're nearly ready for the big tilt. This guy up here. This guy here. Right, let's have a go. There we go. Bam. And there's the computer. And that literally just unplugged through these interconnects here, which went to these guys here. How about that? And so let's have a look at what that's just given us. Firstly, we'll point out some bits on the computer. So we look up here, we can see the bottom of that power supply bit there. We've got a fuse there as well. We've got the big transformer. Then you can see on the inside here, we've got a slot where you could put in the airport card, which is the Wi-Fi card. So that would have been a card bus style thing, a PCMCIA style slot. So you could push the card in there from behind the DVD flap, and it's got a little built-in antenna there that you could then plug into the card to hook up the antenna. And that antenna, that goes to, well, just there, I think. There's one antenna there, and then there's another wire that comes off of that probably goes up to the top somewhere. Then we've also got, what is that? Is that a microphone? It might be. Didn't know these things had mics on them. Would make sense, I suppose. All right. And then if we look at the computer itself, let's push this back. And now if we look at the computer module that we've just pulled out, you can see we've now got access to the hard drive there. So we've got an old Maxter, which is fairly modern looking, all things considered. But yeah, Apple branded Maxter hard drive, 40 gigabytes this thing will be according to the spec. There we go, 40 gigabytes. And yeah, that's a parallel ATA hard drive. And there's the power cable coming in there. That goes back to the board. And we'll find that ribbon cable is going to plug in somewhere underneath this guy. And I want to get that guy off because if we can get behind here, we'll find ourselves a G4 CPU, and I want to see it. I think it's going to be a Motorola because the G4, if my memory serves me, was primarily fabbed by Motorola of all people. And then later on, in the very late lifespan of the PowerPC Macintoshes, so the G4, the late G4s, and the G5, I believe were made by IBM. However, IBM were having trouble keeping up with demand. Apple wanted more, and they also wanted more power, and so they turned to Intel, and they started using Intel chips. How does that come off? I think we need more. I think we've got to get these back parts, maybe. Yeah, those back screws have got to come off. I think this entire thing might be the CPU heatsink. No, the hard drive's got to come out. The hard drive has to come out first. I swear the hard drive was mounted directly underneath the DVD drive on these things. Maybe I'm thinking of the iMac. because the iMac G3, so the colourful iMac, the hard drive for that was directly underneath the DVD drive, and you didn't have to do this much work to get to it. I'm astonished that we didn't have any failed hard drives when I was in charge of these eMacs, because good grief, that would have been a nightmare. Because oh bloody hell, how do I drive? I tell you what, this thing is supposed to flip out. It's just a pain in the ass. There we go, and we've got a little bondage strip there just to give a little bit of cooling onto the side of the hard drive there, because this thing is right on top. Look at that, heat pipe cooling. Really? Heat pipe cooling in 2002? That's really early. I knew that the iMac G4 had heat pipe cooling in it, but I didn't know they had that in these guys. Oh, let's get that Molex connector out so I can release the hard drive. You know what, actually I'm going to disconnect that from the board end. It'll be easier. There we go. So that hard drive is obviously in a cage. Slimline hard drive as well. Very, there's a lot of exotic stuff in here that I didn't expect to see in a 2002 era iMac, in a 2002 era Macintosh. So now we've got our heatsink assembly, which is turning out to be a little bit more interesting than I thought it would be. I thought we were literally just going to find a block of metal down here, but it's a bit more than that. So we've got a screw down there. God, this thing's going to be a nightmare to reassemble. Okay, and we've got to release that. That comes off from there. Are you guys excited? I'm excited. There's always one more screw, and you guys are just waiting to see this, and it's going to be really boring, I bet. Ah! I'm running out of time. I've got 15 minutes to finish shooting this video, or I'm going to have to come back tomorrow. Ah. Okay, that's our hard drive cage out. Right, so now we've got a very, very simple hold down on top of that CPU. So there's our heatsink, which obviously is right at the back of the computer where that cooling fan is that we took off ages ago. So then we've got, well, that looks like the, well, it's not a PCH, but that looks like, because that wasn't a thing back then. This is the a chip, looks like the Northbridge chipset. That looks like the Southbridge chipset. And there's something under there. I wonder what that is. Oh, the face when you've been slightly out of focus for a while. How do we get to that? I can get to it without removing the logic board. So you can see we've got that clip down there. Let's pop that guy out. Please don't kill me. Ooh. We did it. Oh, look at that. That's an exotic looking CPU. Can I get this thing off? There we go. So firstly, just a quick look. So there was our cooler. Whoops. All aluminium construction there. No copper core on this guy. Just a thermal pad that's gone as dry as the desert has. So we've got just a heat plate there, then two heat pipes just coming around to the back of this heatsink there. Very, very simple, but it just gets the heat off of that chip and into this radiator here. And then as you can see, that radiator's got holes in it as well. So the whole computer is going to be, that fan is sitting over here and is pulling air through those holes in the back there across these fins to provide our cooling. That is actually a rather good heatsink design. I'm surprised it has that much through flow. I was expecting it just to have air just coming in through the sides here and into the back of the fan, and there'd be a massive dead spot in the middle. But because we've got those holes in the back, that's actually got rather good cooling on it, which explains how these things were actually able to stay rather quiet despite having, visibly very little cooling on them. Right, let's take a look at this guy. Wow, that thermal pad is just dry. I'm going to grab some tissue. Just using some alcohol just to break it down a little bit. Got a plastic shim over it as well. Oh, there we go. Motorola, I called it. I want to see what's written on that die, but it's not coming off without a fight. There we go, Motorola G4 700 MHz. That looks like XPC 7451. Might just look. I might see if I can find a spec sheet on that. You might see a spec sheet appearing on screen just for fun. See if we can decode that model number or something like that. But there it is. There's the G4 CPU soldered on. None of this socket rubbish. And supporting that, we have a Philips chipset here. So made by Philips, but 2001 Apple VY21983A, whatever that is. We'll look it up in post. And then what I'm guessing is our Southbridge Agere 1258 AK5. Again, 1999 Apple. This is probably doing periphery control, parallel ATA, hard drive channels, stuff like that. Maybe USB, might be a separate USB controller, might be what these guys over here are doing, possibly. There's some power regulation there, probably for the USB and stuff. We've got FireWire down there as well, so that also requires some extra stuff. And there's also a modem, a dial-up modem buried in here somewhere as well. So, not sure if that would be on a separate board. Oh yeah, and there's our dial-up modem there. So, separate board. That's probably got a little pin connector underneath it. And then that little fly lead just jumps straight over to the dial-up connector there. They didn't actually build these onto the motherboards, because the dial-up modem was actually an optional extra, if my memory serves me. But it was an optional extra that the vast majority of people took. I think the dial-up modem used to cost like an extra 10 or 15 quid or something like that, you know. You always got it just in case you needed it. Although at the time when this was coming out, broadband was trickling in, so you didn't really need your dial-up modem anymore. Right, are we gonna go any further than this? Shall I take? Is there going to be anything under there? You know, I think it'd be rude to have come this far and then not take the logic board off. Let's do it. I'll tell you what else I just spotted as well. There's a little PRAM reset switch down there, which would have been accessible before we took it apart. You just needed to know it was down there and give it a poke with something if your Mac wouldn't start. So let's just disconnect these cables, and then we should be able to remove this cage from the whole thing. Or rather, I think we're going to remove the board from the cage. Will be the way around we do this. So let's keep taking screws off. I think what we're going to do, we're going to finish this teardown tonight, and I'll come back tomorrow morning to put it back together again, and we'll turn it on. Let her rip. All 700 megahertz. Whoop. And there we have it. There's the top of the board. And wow, there wasn't a lot to see there, to be honest. We've got some power regulation going on in the middle there. Got another Hynix chip there. Broadcom, that is going to be the Ethernet controller there, Ethernet transformer. So not sure what that guy's doing. Can't be asked to look it up. And then that guy there. We've got some more stuff going on under there. This is probably audio circuit down here. Let me just take a close-up look at that. Yeah, that's a Texas Instruments chip there. And then under here, we do actually have what looks suspiciously like a power amplifier there. So that is probably the main amplifier for the audio. And then we've got our audio jacks there. Then obviously the speakers will hook up near here somewhere. Probably they probably come back to this board interconnect there. And I think that's about it. That's about as much as I can be bothered to point out at any rate. I think I've gone into as much detail as I can do off the top of my head without having without Googling every single one of these chips while I'm going. So yeah, then finally, DVD combo drive there. What's that dated? 2003. There we go. We've got a 2003 computer here. So these chips, so the board was dated 2002. It has some 99 chips on it, or copyright 99, but we've got a 2003 combo drive here, early 2003, but 2003 all the same. So what we have here is, this was probably very late 700 megahertz, because I think there was then a speed bump to 800 megahertz, and then I think there was a third generation with the speed bump to 1 gigahertz, and I think that was the end of the line for the eMac. They then closed it down in favor of a low-cost iMac. And in terms of the last of this big beast here, there's nothing much more to see in this guy. We have got a big circuit board on the back here, and that is all just the power supply and control circuitry for the CRT. And I'm not going to delve into that guy because, yeah, there's scary stuff in there, and there's probably not a lot to see, to be honest. If you want to know more about CRTs, I would probably look up some television teardowns or something like that. Hopefully you might find someone who knows more about HVAC or industrial electronics than I do. Not that I know a huge amount anyway. And yeah, they'll probably be able to tell you more about that, but I'm not going to take that guy apart. However, we've taken a big dive into certainly the computer side of this thing. So I'm going to come in tomorrow morning and leave all these screws all over my desk, come in tomorrow morning, curse myself, and put this thing back together again. And with a bit of luck, it'll turn on and work. See you guys soon. Well, I did just pop the push pins on this fella here just to find out what was under there. However, this metal heatsink, well, you can barely call it a heatsink, this bit of metal did not want to come off. The thermal paste that's under there is glued on pretty darn tight, and I don't want to risk breaking it because I do actually want this thing to work again. I mean, obviously I don't really care about it, but it would be nice for the rest of this video if it worked when I put it back together. So I did try giving it a pull. I even tried getting the screwdriver under there, but it didn't want to budge, so I thought, yeah, we're not going to push that. That would be a shame if I ripped a chip off the board at this point. So we're just going to reassemble. All right, so I've put this thing mostly back together again. I've put the turntable back on. This is an optional extra, by the way. They don't normally have these, but it's quite useful this one does, because it now means that I can have it on the turntable with the covers off, which is kind of cool. So we can see the insides and stuff. So the display cable is that guy there, and I'm hoping that I might be able to just do a little bit of fiddling with that and just replicate the original fault that I fixed back in the day. So in the meantime, we're going to power this thing up and just see if it actually starts and runs first. Now, friendly reminder, again, I've got the back covers off. There's high voltage here. I am going to be very careful with where I'm putting my hands. And when I say being careful where I'm putting my hands, I'm not going to put my hands anywhere near it. Now, the interesting parts on it are down on this side, we have sort of transformer and power stuff down there, but it's buried behind these heat sinks. And as long as I don't go poking a screwdriver down there, that's not going to jump out and bite me. And the other dangerous spot is this guy here. This cable here that comes down, this is a flyback transformer. This is the guy that's generating the really high voltages, the hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of volts to drive the anode for the cathode ray tube. So again, this guy's a no-go zone. However, he's pretty well insulated. Again, it's not going to jump out and bite me. However, likewise, we're not going to go anywhere near it. So yeah, we have had a look. Let's power this thing up. Right, this power cable is 3 pins, so I'm going to guess. Let's go for the red and the black. Oof, there it goes. Got a light on the front. Oh, there it goes. Hey, it lives. Cooling fan makes a bit more noise than I remember, but I think I'm just comparing that to the modern ones that produce very, very little noise. So that flickering you're seeing on the screen, that's just the camera. In fact, I think my 30 frames camera can't see that. Yeah, the 30 frames a second camera can't see that flickering. However, the 60 frames Brio can just see the scan lines on the CRT there. Cool, so that guy's starting up just fine. Let's find out what's on it. It's probably going to come up with the previous owner's details, which is going to be a bit annoying. It's not very bright, this thing. I wonder if it just needs time to warm up. It probably hasn't run in a while. Oh, it's an old version. I think that is 10.2. I'm going 10.2. Here we go, about this Mac. Bang on the money, 1028. 700 megahertz, 128 megs of RAM. Cool. I think that's slowly brightening up, just where the ray tube is warming up. System preferences. Displays. There we go, brightness. Yeah, we can make that a little bit brighter. Refresh rate 90 Hz, thank you very much. 1280 by 960. Not bad. A little bit unstable at that. We'd have to figure, it needs to be fit, the geometry needs a bit of adjustment and such like. Oh, the camera doesn't like that. Let's drop it down to 800 by 600. Hz. I'm not allowed to go down to 640 by 480, but that's not surprising. Cool, okay, so it works. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look up, has it got a DVD in it? I don't have an eject button on this particular keyboard. It's got Ugly Betty Disc 6 in it. Someone's lost that. They're going to wonder where that went. Cool. I'll leave that out, actually. Put that in the lost discs department. All right. Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to look up the pinout for that display cable so we can do a little bit of playing with that and just see if I can make it do the thing, just so you guys can see what the fault was. And then I think we'll be done. All right, we're plugged back in again. Let's fire it back up. And I have sabotaged the horizontal lock pin. Boing. Not powering on. Interesting. Does it need that pin to turn on? Let's unplug it again. Huh. It's dead, Jim. It don't want to turn on. I can hear a little frazzle coming from the CRT when I try and turn it on, but it's not actually starting. Oh, do I have to put that pin in properly to rule that out as a possible fault? Oh, come on, the computer should turn on with the IVAD cable disconnected. Unless this thing is buggered. Let's try it again. Ah, that's interesting. We get no response from it if that LCD cable is disconnected entirely. So maybe I unplugged the wrong pin or just upset it. Let's just plug that all in properly and see if it'll turn on. Ah, there it goes. I picked the wrong pin. Okay, let's try again. Alright, sabotage attempt take 2. There we go. Let's try that. So, we should be short of horizontal lock now. I don't even know if the CRT will turn on in this condition. It's not looking promising. So what happens if I jog that horizontal lock? Aha. Okay. Let's wiggle it. No. This thing is confident. That's just either a picture or no picture. Oh, we didn't like that. I did something that upset it there. Well, I had a bash at seeing if I could sabotage this chap. I tried disconnecting the horizontal lock pin on the display cable just to see if I could get the display to freak out a little bit and maybe just jump off, which was the fault that I wanted to try and replicate, but I couldn't do it. When I had the horizontal lock pin disconnected, we got no signal at all. And when I had it sort of slightly in, just so it was a bit, you know, a bit higgledy-piggledy, the screen, it flickered slightly, but we didn't actually get any satisfying analog errors kind of thing. It was very confident. It was either there was a picture or there was no picture. There was nothing in between. So I don't think I'm going to be able to replicate that old fault and show you what that looks like. But I don't know, I think we took a rather interesting dive into the Apple eMac. And I certainly had a lot of fun revisiting this computer. So thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Maybe we'll do some other kind of project with this thing in the future. I'm going to put all the back covers back on and everything. And I will keep this thing. And, you know, maybe we'll do something fun with it in the future. The only problem is, the only kind of really fun projects would be like to gut it out and put modern components in it. But I don't know how I would remove the CRT. I wouldn't know where to start with that. But yeah, I don't know. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for 5,000 subs, I guess. See you all next time. Bye for now.